Join hand in hand, brave Americans all, and round.
Welcome to the Acadec Coach's Playbook from the Texas Academic Decathlon. I'm Jared Stewart, and I'm here with Donna Friend and Jeanette Brooks from Hebron High School. Donna has been coaching for 22 years, and Jeanette is going on 2 years as co-coach with Donna. Welcome, Donna and Jeanette.
Thank you.
So this is our 4th episode, and after our first 3 looked at the kind of beginning part of the year, now we're kind of transitioning into that middle part of the year where we're heading into scrimmages and we're preparing for district for some schools and the region for others. So Jeanette, Donna, as you approach district and region, what are the biggest issues you're dealing with?
I think it's the same issue we had last year. We have more kids than we can actually include on our team, and they're a wonderful group this year. They're very collaborative. They're quick to jump into activities. They're enthusiastic, and we just wish we could keep them all. But that's not how you win. And it's not how it's scored.
Yep, and they won't let us bring all of them with us. So we have to make some hard decisions. We know that that's coming up. I think we're also rounding out our first run through the materials. And so now we're going to start shifting to how do we go back through it? How do we review? And how do we do reviews that are a little bit more student-led and a little bit less of us handing it to the kids, because it's time for them to take ownership of that material and of their own studying. And, all of that leads to them knowing it more and better in the end and performing well.
So how do you get them to take ownership?
Man, if we knew the magic answer to that. Some of it is letting those who are natural leaders begin to lead and plan study sessions outside of school, and they make it a little bit social and a little bit learning. And we don't really have a lot to do with that. We let them kind of run the directions they want to with that, which normally involves a Starbucks or the public library on the weekend. We've done a lot of gaming of the stuff, of the materials, and that's kudos to Jeanette on that one. She's a pro at that kind of stuff. And so they like bookets and flashcards and what's the one I skipped?
The little battle game.
Oh, the booket battle game for sure. Yeah. Oh, the one where we throw paper at each other too. It's a battle game. And so it has been a lot of us organizing that so that they enter into the competition with the materials or the playing the game with the materials or whatever. And so now it's kind of time to push that to them of they're the creators of new materials so that they're organizing. They've read the stuff, they've seen the stuff, they've been exposed to the content. So now they need to organize it in different ways in their own heads and share it with each other. And so we're trying to push it that way where they're the creators of those reviews and games and fun things. So it keeps it fun, but it transfers that learning on the material to them.
And they learn pretty quickly once they start doing it, that they learn it better when they are the creators. That simply having it fed to them by us is short-term and temporary. Whereas when they're creating things, that's for the long term. And when they're trying to make it interesting for themselves and others, that makes it stick a little bit better as well.
It is funny too when we ask them sometimes like, hey, we want you to cover this particular section, and they put a slideshow together and then they stand up to present it to the group and they read from slides. It's like, how many classes do you go to where your teachers read from slides? And is that the most exciting thing you've ever been in? And we tell them not to do it and they keep doing it. And the irony is there, I guess, of like, no, you hate it when teachers do that to you. And yet that's the way you bring it in. So we're working on them to kind of push them out of their comfort zones too of, yeah, that's what's easy to do, but it's more fun and more engaging, and the material should stick when they do it in some different ways.
So as you're going into district and region, what role does goal setting play? How do you keep the kids motivated? What are some of the things you've done to kind of, because obviously right about October, they start getting a little tired. They start kind of slowing down a bit. How do you keep them going?
One of the things that we do that works really well is just a public accessible score sheet that we've kept since the beginning. So quiz number 1, your score goes in there with all of your teammates' scores, and everyone can see that. And it's interesting. You would think it would create maybe some tension, but more than anything, it just motivates them and they push each other and they want to see their scores as soon as they're entered. And it was really fun at our scrimmage that we did to watch them just cling to us. When are you going to put the score sheet in? When can we see it? And then once we finally let them see it, for them to gather around that computer and see where they ranked against each other, as well as how they ranked against kids from other schools, was great for their motivation. We have one returner this year who was a freshman last year that was on our honors state team. And she was probably sixth for us. And there was just this little fire in her eyes that you could see. And since then, she's been outscoring people on many things. That was the little fuse she needed to keep going.
And that's something we implemented maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, with our Louisville ISD, other high school friends with 5 high schools in ISD. And we started a meet. I wouldn't even call it a meet, a scrimmage, a practice, or whatever, in either late September or early October, where we take the easy round of tests from USAD. And just the 5 high schools, we meet at a cafeteria at one of our campuses, and we all take the 7 tests in a row on a Saturday morning, because it's the first time the kids have had exposure to what it feels like to do all 7 of them in a row if they're new to our team. So we want them to have that. We want them to also understand that feeling of being in a room with other teams, which is different than being in the room with your classmates. And then that gives us a super early preview of who already comes in with a lot of knowledge, because we haven't covered everything by that point, who is absorbing the stuff we have covered by that point. And that really is, like what Jeanette said, is that first really spark that you see that starts to push kids who maybe were just kind of hanging out, or didn't, some of them just hanging out, but some of them just didn't understand how it all works together until they see it. And so with our sister schools, we started doing that several years ago, but this year we moved it a little bit earlier, because it was a few weeks ago already now, to be sure that it was in that first 9 weeks worth before we hit our midterms this past week, so that kids got excited and wanted to stay in class the second 9 weeks, and then they wanted to work to make that team, because we don't make that team cut until December for our district meet.
And just because we naturally have kids who are they're grade centered. I mean, they're academically inclined kids. So up until that scrimmage, it's about the grade in the grade book. The scrimmage, then it's suddenly about, how do I compete with other kids who are as motivated as I am? Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important for them to take it out of the context of a grade.
Right. And they don't believe us that varsity kids can score 900s until they go see somebody do it.
Yeah, they absolutely can. And it's so great that y'all do that. I know a lot of districts have a district competition, but most, or at least the districts I've been involved in, have a district competition. There's not a lot of work prior to district with the other schools. And I think it's an easy thing to do, of just kind of to get that competition in even earlier. Our districts generally were in December too. And so, if you don't go to a scrimmage, at least you need to do something to get the kids understanding this is competition, not just against the people that you're in a class with, but also with people across town and in other parts of the state. So I think that's great that y'all do that.
And we will see the same teams again in our official district meet in December. So it is actually kind of fun that our kids get to know them a little bit, the teams from the other high schools early, and then they know they're going to see them again. Some of them are going to go to an Irving meet in November, but all 5 high schools will get back together in December. And so I feel like we're forming this kind of camaraderie across our district as well. And then of course, those are the teams we'll see at regionals and state too. So it's sort of fun to have that all year long thing with them.
No, go ahead.
It fosters respect too, that although it's competitive, it's like great athletes, they look at these people scoring high and they're like, how does that person do it? Right. And when they meet them, they go, oh, you're that person. And it's cool just to see them want to be one of the people whose names other people know.
Right.
Yep. And that's what I was just about to say. It's funny how they become like little minor celebrities in the Acadec world. Like, oh, that's the kid that scored, 8,800 as a varsity, right? And so, and again, they do have the question of, what are you doing? And I think that's an important thing about part of this competition, is them learning that there's different ways to do things and kind of exposing them to that. We had a young lady in Frisco who got a perfect 1,000 on essay at state, and the kids wanted to know exactly what she did. And I was like, well, she wrote an essay every single day, did the full 50 minutes, had the teacher look at it, give her feedback, and she wrote another one the next day. And I was like, if you're willing to do that,
amazing.
yeah, if you're willing to do that, feel free. And they were like, I think we'll be okay with our 9 something that we normally get. And I was like, okay. And I was like, all right. But that's the trade-off, right? But at the very least, they're curious, like, what is the other kid doing that I'm not doing?
Right.
So I think that's a great conversation to have. So how do y'all approach scrimmages? How do you choose the scrimmages you're going to?
Well, that first one is the one that we just, as the 5 high schools do, that's our very first thing. Our second one will be the Irving meet hosted by Irving ISD. It's November 12th this year. And we've been going for a while now, because I think we went maybe the first or second year they did it. And that's another district we've kind of developed a camaraderie with. And they have the most amazing coaches, and we have a really good time with them. And that kind of was what started it. They said, hey, we're going to do this thing. Y'all want to come? We're like, yeah, sure, whatever. It's convenient and it's close, but also they run a fantastic meet, and their number one goal is to celebrate kids. And so they give out a recognition and awards through 5th place. They award, every team gets a trophy. Like if your team had the best cumulative score in econ, you get a trophy. In art, you get a trophy. In math, you get a trophy. So, I mean, they are all about celebrating the kids and having a really good time. And I think that's that extra sparkle glitter they add to a meet that makes the kids want to go. And now they're that last year, was it, or year before, they added that virtual layer too. So now we've got 30 and 40 something teams at one meet.
Wow.
Between the in-person and virtual teams.
And you just mentioned, and you just mentioned something that, I'm sorry, you just mentioned something that I did want to point out that I think is a good point to make, is that the other point of the scrimmages is for coaches, for you to get a chance to know the coaches. Because very often at region or at state, you're not always around other coaches, but man, at scrimmages, you can really get to know a lot of people quickly. And that's some of the best professional development you can have, is just have a conversation with another coach.
Yes, and I would say for me too, that's the thing that changed over time in coaching. It was when I started, I don't think I knew a whole lot, and I asked a lot of people a lot of questions, and they would only tell me certain things, and then the rest of it, the coaches would say, well, that's our strategy, we're not sharing that with you. And over time, that has definitely changed to, wow, we're in this together, how do we do it? Because I can share all the strategies I want with everybody. We teach different kids. And so we could all do the same thing and come out with different results. So why not learn from each other and grow with each other? And that's made Acadec that much more fun for me as a coach and a person.
Absolutely.
The kids are still the best part. However, getting to know more coaches and working together has been pretty amazing. Yeah,
and I mean, there are some finer points, some very specific things that I did that I wouldn't share, just because, they were very specific to my kids and my personality and everything else.
Yeah.
But that's not really, I think, what benefits most coaches. It's kind of the underlying kind of premises of what we're doing here, and some and things to watch out for. I think it's one of the things I like talking about on here is leading into my next question for Jeanette, is, what's been the kind of the biggest realization, Jeanette, since you're having done this, 2 years, what's been the biggest realization for you as you've gone through this?
Just one of the most important lessons is what we were talking about earlier. And it's the lesson you need in every class you teach in high school, is to hand over more to the kids. Like, we have to set the tone for how hard we're going to work. And we have to be willing to bring energy and vary things to keep it interesting when you're in a really dense pile of facts. But once we establish that, the more we give them the ownership of it, and the more we make them believe that it is their game, it's their strategy that's going to matter, we learn from them. We learn new things to do from watching what they do. So I think that was a really important thing for me to take and then apply to my other teaching as well.
Absolutely. Donna, after 22 years, what's something you know now that you had no clue about when you started? Or what's changed the most since you started doing this? Either one, I'm good.
Oh, wow. Well, back in my day, no, really. So I competed as a kid, so I remember not having materials and going
Wow.
to the college library, the local library. We went to Sam Houston State, and we looked up the art pictures because we didn't have access to the pictures. So we had to go find them. To know that now our kids are walking around with every resource guide and art reproduction and audio of all the music in their hands on their phone is
Yep.
ridiculous compared to what we did. And yes, I'm that old. But I
It hasn't
think,
been that long ago, but yeah.
yes, it has. But thank you for saying
Okay,
that.
I was trying to help you out there, but
Not really.
It's all relative.
It is. That's true.
it's all relative. It hasn't been that long ago.
Yeah. On the coaching end of thing, the biggest change has been that camaraderie between coaches and between teams, and has just made every event and every year so much more fun, because you are going back looking for those kids that you watched last year from somebody else's team or from that coach that you helped out. And like in our case, the fly around coach is brand new, and he was very much in a situation. Well, this is technically, I guess, his second year. Right.
Yes.
But he was in a situation that he had no resources whatsoever and nobody on his campus to tell him anything. And it was awesome to watch us kind of rally around him and support him and help him as much as he could, because he needed that. He needed somebody to do that. And I don't think in my first or second year that would have happened. So I like that.
Yeah.
I like the feel at regionals, and I like the feel at state. It feels like we're there for kids and not for our egos, which that has changed over time too, for sure. And that's what it should be. It should be about our kids and their success, and just watching what all they can do and how amazing they are.
Yeah, I tell the new coaches when I train them in September, it's like, these days, if you will just reach out to any Acadec coach and say, hey, I need help.
Yep.
99% of the time you're going to get a positive response of like, hey, what do you need? Here's what I can give, like, here's everything. And that's been my experience with coaches around the state, and to even some degree out of the state. And so it's much more collegial, from what I understand, than it was
Absolutely.
ever in the past. So
Yeah, definitely.
Well, when you're sitting there at state on the floor and the kids are taking tests for hours, and you've picked up whatever fast food you can get really quickly, it's a lot more entertaining if people that you're enjoying being around.
Definitely.
Well, thank you, Jeanette and Donna, for joining us today on the Acadec Coaches Playbook. And thanks to our listeners for joining us. Remember to follow all our social media accounts to stay up to date all year on the exciting world of Texas academic decathlon. If you have topics or questions you'd like answered, reach out to us through our accounts or email us. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Jeanette and Donna.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you for having us.
Freedom we're born, and in freedom we'll live. Our purses are ready. Steady, boys, steady. Not as slaves, but as free men, our money will give.